Well, hey, crazy friends, we are so glad you're back with us. And if you thought after almost an entire year of planning, prepping, researching, packing, selling, all the things that go into full-time RV life, if you think after a full year of that, our first 24 hours was seamless, it was picture perfect, it was wonderful, it was everything we had dreamed of. Well, if you thought that, you would be wrong. Because if you have ever read Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Very Bad, No Good Day, or whatever the title is, I cannot seem to get it right, but if you have ever read that, then you have a small glimpse of what our very first 24 hours of full-time RV living was like.
That's right. After all that prepping and planning, setting out on this epic adventure, thinking that everything was going to be amazing, our first 24, actually 48 hours were terrible. I mean, terrible. Not like had a bad day, stumped your toe walking out the door. I'm talking about walking out the door and your car's on fire. Just where everything
that did not happen.
Possibly could go wrong.
Just about
went wrong. It was pretty bad. And you know, we know that Alexander kind of experienced that in his book, but we also know that the Bible tells us that we shouldn't have been surprised. Matthew 5:45 tells us the rain falls on the just and the unjust, and we're all just going to have bad days. It doesn't matter what we're doing, what new we're attempting. You may have something that you're trying to do in your life, and just because something's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because something's right doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and that was the truth for us. And so we had a lot to press through in that first 24 hours. But before we even pulled out, we hit our first kind of minor roadblock a couple of days before. About 24 hours before we were set to pull out on this adventure, it was time to pack the RV, and that was a hurdle that we did not expect. We'd been camping quite a bit, but if you've ever been camping versus full-time RVing, you realize that packing for a weekend of camping is completely different than packing your entire life for forever in an RV. And we knew that, but we didn't really know that. And so let us take you back and let you experience a little bit of that with us.
The night before launch. Tomorrow is our launch day, and so we've got all of this stuff in the back of the car that's got to go in the camper, and that's not all. So we have all of this that's got to go, plus we have all of these containers that have to go in there.
All right, guys, this is it. We have arrived at our D-Day. This is the day that I have been dreading from the beginning. All the renovation, all the planning, none of that scared me. But today we're on the precipice of just this whole thing falling apart. That's right, today is the day that we're trying to actually pack clothes for 9 people into this trailer. As you can see, we have quite a lot of clothes because we have quite a lot of bodies. And it's going about like I thought it would. We have more things that we need to put in here than we probably have space to put in here. But my wife is doing an amazing job. And right then is when everything went horribly wrong. Started to run off the rails. We got everything packed. We went home. We went to sleep, thinking the next morning we're going to wake up, we're going to kind of close out our house, and we're going to go head out on this adventure. Well, that is not what happened.
No. So if you don't know, if you're new here or if you don't know much about our family is built by adoption and birth and foster care, international and domestic adoptions. And so we have 2 daughters from China that we adopted about 4 years ago, and they are identical twins. Their names are Rosie and Ruthie, and they share their looks. They share a lot being identical twins, but one thing they do share is that they both have epilepsy. They have both types of epilepsy, both partial seizures, and they also have grand mal seizures. And so that morning, Sky had run upstairs. So this was our final day. We were selling our home. We were trying to vacuum our way out of the house, and Sky runs downstairs and tells us that Rosie is having a grand mal seizure. And so we run upstairs, and unfortunately that had been her first seizure with us. Ruthie has had a couple, but this was Rosie's first one. And so it was different in the way that she responded than Ruthie's. So it was like a whole new learning experience with her. Even though her twin sister had had seizures before, this was new, and she reacted totally different. And so it was really scary for us, for our whole family. And so we just kind of stopped, and we called our neurologist, and we made sure it was what we needed to do. And we just decided that day we were just going to relax. We were going to finish up the things around the house, and we were going to let Rosie just have a day. But the good news about that, as hard as that is to think that there's good news about a grand mal seizure, the blessing in that was the fact that we got medication where it needed to be, changed exactly where it needed to be. Our neurologist gave us the clear. She knew exactly what we're planning on doing and gave us the clear to go ahead and go, but we just needed a day for her to rest. So we can't think of a much more traumatic way to begin an RV adventure with questions. Should we go? Should we stay? What does this mean for her health, for our journey? And so thankfully all of those questions got answered, and she is doing wonderful. In case you wanted to know, it's been several months now and not a seizure to be seen for either one of them. But that day we didn't know any of that, and it was a really scary way to start off an RV adventure.
Yeah, so that set us back a whole 24 hours from setting out, and kind of rattled everybody. And so the next day, you know, we had settled everything with the doctors, and so we were ready to take off the next day, thinking we're going to put this whole thing behind us. We go, we pack up, we load everybody up, we pull out of our storage spot for the very last time. We're only headed a couple of hours over into North Alabama for just a first stopover. We were going to see some friends, and we're going to stay in this one place 2 nights, I think. And so we head out, everything's fine on the drive, and so we're kind of starting to release some of that anxiety from the first 24 hours as we're heading out. And then we got there, we pull in to the site, and immediately everything starts to fall apart again.
Yeah.
And so we get to the site, and it was not our best pick of a site.
No.
It was literally on the interstate. I mean, our camper was parked about 20 yards from the road, no fence. I mean, it was pretty crazy. But we pull in, and there'd been a lot of rain, and so the whole campsite was kind of damp. And so I'm pulling in, and had to go down to the end of the site and do kind of a big U-turn around the U-turn and come back up into their pull-through sites. And ours was the second one. And so I'm turning around, and I'm watching the site. And so I'm pulling in and kind of watching behind me. And I pull into the site and stop, and I think I have done an amazing job pulling into this site. And I get out of the car, and everybody in the van is yelling at me.
Well, so you have to understand what's happening on our end. In his car, so if you don't know, we are a big family, obviously, and we have to travel in 2 vehicles. So Jay is in the truck with our dog Brownie, and I am in the big red 15-passenger van. We call it Big Red. I'm in Big Red, and I have all the rest of the kids with me. I have 6 kids. We have a 7th, but she has her own life and her own apartment and her own journey. And so I have 6 kids with me, and we're pulling in, and we have since learned that the communication between us needs to start right before we start pulling in. So that's a newbie tip that we could give you is don't wait until you try to figure out the campsite and before you start making
now
that phone
we
call.
get on the phone with each other before I even pull off.
When we're pulling off the interstate, we get on the phone with each other and say, okay, here we go. Because that's where it all goes crazy. The small roads, the entranceways, and you think because they're RV parks that they're RV friendly, but you would be wrong on that. They're not always that way. And so we pull in, and so he's kind of hits this pylon, like this whole huge.
So because there was a lot of water in the park, down around the inside of this U-turn to kind of keep people away from the muddy part, they had cut tree rounds, and so basically it's a log about this big around that they had put like 4 of them there with a little like dollar store solar panel light thing that you put in your yard stuck on top of it, and so apparently I ran completely over one.
And so we know he can't hear us, but it doesn't change the knee jerk reaction to scream at the top of your lungs. So all the children, all of us are going, stop, stop. Everybody's screaming, the dog's jumping around. It's sheer chaos in here. And of course, Jay is completely
I'm in the
oblivious.
truck thinking I'm doing a great job.
Again, we're not on the phone like the newbie people that we are. And so he just creams it. And I am a people pleaser by nature. And so I am not as worried about the camper as I am the host of the RV site, that she's going to kick us out, that we have ruined their whole facility, and that we're going to be this newbie family. And I was terrified that we were going to get kicked out. And so that was like the first 3 minutes that we had arrived.
Luckily, no damage to the RV. I just went and rolled the log back up. It cost her a dollar store light.
She was so sweet. It was totally fine.
No big deal.
We weren't the first ones.
So, so that was the first thing. So then we get in and we get set up and we're trying to kind of get everybody settled, and it just continued to go from bad to worse. And so, as I said, it had been a lot of rain, and this park specifically was really, really muddy, and our site was really, really muddy. And so we've got these kids that are trying to get in and out, helping us even move some stuff around, but they are just tracking mud through the entire RV. And again, when you've only got 360 square feet, if it gets dirty, it's a big deal. Like in your house, like if there's a room that gets kind of dirty, you just close the door, you don't go there. You can't do that in an RV.
No.
So our stress, we're yelling at the kids, the stress is getting up, the dogs are tracking in mud. It's just chaos. And then on top of that, all that stuff that you saw us trying to put up the first night, we didn't get it all put up.
No.
And so there's still stacks of clothes and items that are in places where they shouldn't be. And that just adds to the stress as well, because again, when you've got a big house, you can close the door on a dirty kid's bedroom. When you've just got a tiny RV, if something's not in its spot.
9 people, like 8 people, 9, our daughter's not with us, but 8 people. It's not like it's a small one, 2 dogs and a turtle.
And so there's stuff everywhere. The stuff's getting muddy because it's falling over into the floor where the mud's everywhere. My stress level is getting up. I'm starting to get short with people. Francis says, look, just go walk the dogs, bring them back in, we'll feed them. We do that. Brownie, our oldest dog, eats, and about 2 seconds later throws up all over the camper.
It was
all over the living room floor.
So it's muddy, there's kids everywhere, there's clothes everywhere, and now there is dog vomit everywhere.
Yeah, it was not a banner moment right there.
Bad.
And so we get it mostly cleaned up, and then the alarm starts to go off on the black tank. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna go outside and empty the tank, get away from all of this, put on my rain jacket. It's raining. I put on my rain jacket. I go outside. I'm emptying the tanks, and where the hookup was for the sewer was kind of in a weird place, and so my hoses were not run exactly right. Since then, I've cut them down and made them work for me, but at that point I still didn't know. So I had this hose that was too long, and so when I was emptying the tank, of course it kind of caterpillared up out of its stand. We have one of those little stand things, and so I went to pick it up to put it back in. Well, it's full of poopy water. And when I picked it up, apparently one of the joints on the end wasn't super tight, and so the pressure popped it off, and I dumped a whole, I had already closed the tank luckily, but I dumped a hose full of sewer all over. So, we're not even 24 hours into full timing, and I've had my first poopsie. If you don't know what a poopsie is, that's an accident with the stinky slinky. And so, so as upset as we were, I'm sure the host of that campsite was really, really happy to see us when we left. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was not a great
No,
first
it
evening,
really wasn't.
First
It was
24
really-
hours, first 48 hours. I mean, literally, it was so bad. When we went to bed that night, listening to the semi trucks drive by at 1 o'clock in the morning, we were really questioning whether did we make a mistake here? Are we not cut out for this? Maybe this can't work. I mean, it was a tough moment there.
Really.
But we know from, we've done hard things, foster care, adoption. And so we know sometimes that when it's hard, you just have to lean into the fact that God's called you to it.
Yeah.
And that's the only anchor that kind of holds you to pressing forward. And so that's what we did. I mean, we know that God has called us to do this for this season without a doubt. And we know there'll probably be more hard times. But in that hard time, that night, that was what pressed us forward. It's like, no, we need to press on. This is just the first 24 hours. Some of these things are settled. We're getting them figured out. Let's keep moving forward. And so the next day, it all turned around. God blessed us. We were out in the middle of nowhere in North Alabama. We both grew up in Alabama.
Yeah.
But had never been to North Alabama. And so we had planned to go to Cathedral Caverns, which is a little state park there in North Alabama. We didn't really know anything about it. And we got up that morning and said, look, we didn't come on this adventure to be inside of this RV anyway. This is just the mode to get us the places we want to be. We came to experience things with our family. Let's just leave everything right here. Everything's not put up, everything's not cleaned up, it's still muddy, but we're leaving. Let's load up and let's go do this thing that we wanted to do. And as soon as we got there, it was just a really kind of beautiful, redeemed moment.
Because in that moment, we were just overwhelmed. We were questioning everything. And when we got there, kind of a miracle thing happened. Their tour started at 10, and even on their website it says we do not hold the tours for anyone. And so we got there at about 10:10, and
running late on top of the bad day.
Running late, and we just said, you know what, this would be about the way that things are going for us. We're going to get to this place that is kind of what we've been looking forward to in this location, and we will have been too late and we will have missed it. But God was so gracious to us. There was a school group that had come that morning. This was pre-COVID, and so a school group had come that morning, and they had just gone in, and the lady said, we have a few other people, so we're going to let the school group go first, and then we're going to let you guys and a few small groups of other people go together. So we got a tour almost to ourselves with our family and 2 other couples, and that was it. And I remember as we walked into the cavern, and it's this massive opening. This is just you can't even fathom what is inside of this cavern. It is incredible. And as our kids are just taking off running in, and we're having some silly moments outside, we're just cracking up, we're trying to laugh, we're trying to just release some stress. We're so excited that God has opened the opportunity for us to go, even though we were late. And as our kids are dashing into this huge cave, running in, just excited to be there, Jay and I looked at each other, we took a deep breath, and we said, this is why we're doing what we're doing. It isn't about the RV. It isn't about the cars or the trucks. You can get so overwhelmed looking on Facebook sites and looking on YouTube videos, and you can even have an overwhelming time in your own rig. But we learned an important start to our entire journey that God taught us at the very first 24 hours was, this is why we're called to do what we do with our family, to share our love of the Lord, and also to just have crazy fun adventures, and we did.
So let us we want to share a little bit of that with you. So let's take you inside of Cathedral Caverns. Cathedral Caverns is a Alabama state park that was opened in the summer of 2000. It's located in North Alabama, just outside of the town of Woodville. It was originally a private cave, and then back in the 1950s, a gentleman named Jay Gurley bought the cave and began to explore it. And at that time, only the front part had really been explored. And he began to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the cave. It really became kind of his life's passion. And he opened it up to the public and then eventually sold it to the Alabama State Parks, where they redid it, made it handicapped accessible, widened out all the paths, and then opened it up. It's about a 2-mile walk in and out. You walk all the way to the end and then walk back out. And again, as Francis said, we were blessed. They're guided tours, and we were blessed that it was just really our family and 2 other couples that were with us. Does anybody remember the name of our guide? What was his name?
What's his name? Rooster.
Rooster.
That's right, Rooster.
Shout out to Rooster.
Rooster the park
He's the
guide.
best.
So we saw a lot of amazing things in there, but we want the kids to tell you some of their favorite things. And so Sky, what was one of your favorite things that you got to see?
My favorite part was at the end. Rooster had us close our eyes, and then when he told us to open it, the whole cave like lit up with lights.
It was pretty cool. They had turned out all the lights, and then boom, they turned them on in this main cave, which is how the cavern got its name. It was originally called Bat Cave, and then it was renamed Cathedral Caverns because of this one huge cathedral room that they turned off all the lights, and then they have you close your eyes, and boom, they pop them on. It's a really, really, really beautiful moment. All right, Joe, what about you?
I like the big stalagmites and stalactites.
And what was we saw one that's a world record holder. What was it called? Goliath, that's right. And so we saw stalactites and stalagmites. And do you remember which ones hang from the ceilings? Remember? Tights. Because they hold tight to the ceiling, right? That's and then right. Which ones come up from the bottom? Mites. There you go. And Goliath is one when the stalactite and the stalagmite meet, they form, does anybody remember? A column, and that's what Goliath is, and it's one of the biggest. You couldn't even see around it. You had to like walk around it. It was so big. All right, Christopher, what about you?
At the end, there actually was like lots of stuff that the cave made, like a candle and like popcorn and all that. And actually at the end, Rooster actually told us that actually there was a huge Darth Vader helmet at the end, and that was what I liked the most.
Yeah. So lots of the stalactites and stalagmites looked like different things. My favorite one that looked like something was one that was called bacon. It looked like a slice of bacon that they had put a light behind, yeah. But there was one that looked kind of like a Darth Vader helmet. Rosie, what about you? Do you remember what was your favorite part of the cave?
The water.
You liked the water, and what about you? What did you like?
I like water.
You liked the water too? Did you like the cave?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it small or was it big?
Big.
It was big, wasn't it? Yes, yes. Was it, Rosie, was it light or was it dark?
It was dark.
It was dark, wasn't it?
Exactly right.
Yes, it was dark. That's right. One of my favorite things was that all during this time, as he was exploring and all that, his wife, she never did come in. She never came, and she was like, "You just have your cave experience, and I'm good." And at the very end, there was a room back in the very back that we were not allowed to go into. It was the cathedral room, and we were not allowed. There was some way in the back that you don't have access to. They do some small tours, but they don't do as many anymore. But when she came, he had her come, I think it was on our anniversary, yeah. And he said, "I just want you, this is what I want you to come in, and I want to show you this cathedral room." And he came in, and that's about the moment when he turned the lights off, like Sky said, and he turned them on. And even though we'd been standing there, I imagined what she must have felt, never been in that cave like myself, and this life work that her husband had done. And she probably was like, "It's a gross cave, it's dark, there's bats, it's gross, I'm not going." It's exactly what I would have thought. I don't really love caves. That's not my favorite thing. And so when it lit up, it was awe-inspiring. And I just thought about that moment that she must have experienced. And it was neat to hear about kind of his journey with his wife and her perspective on that too. So I thought that was one of my favorite things, is kind of imagining myself as his wife.
My favorite thing, so I'm a child of the 80s. And so this was the highlight moment for me, is the old Disney movie Huck and Finn. They get trapped in a cave and have to fight Indian Joe. That was filmed in Cathedral Cavern. And so, that was my highlight, was getting to see this little part where this movie from my childhood was filmed. So overall, it was just an amazing experience. It was an amazing day. It's super cool down in the cavern, but not cold, and it's always the same temperature. So it was so comfortable. The walk was so nice. just seeing the work that Jay Gurley had poured into his life in this, there were parts where he had to like swim underwater to get to new parts to find them, and then he would dig back through. There were parts where it took him years to dig out a tunnel to access new parts of the cavern. Just seeing all that he had poured into it, it was really pretty amazing. And so if you're ever in that area, great family friendly, even big family friendly opportunity for you to do. So really highly recommend it. I think we all give it 2 thumbs up.
What do we give it? Let's just see. Do we give it a thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, or thumbs down? So Ruthie, do you give it a thumbs up, or a thumbs middle, or a thumbs down? What do you give it? Thumbs up for Ruthie. Okay, what about you, Rosie? What do you give it? Thumbs up, thumbs middle, or thumbs down? She is dark. It was dark. She gives it a thumbs middle.
What about
thumbs
you, Scott?
middle. It was dark.
I gave it a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, Joe.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. What about you?
Christopher?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Me. I give it a
Nice.
thumbs up.
Me as well. Super fun having our kids here for our first family video with you guys to kind of get their perspective on travel. We've been sheltering in place for a while, so there hadn't been a whole lot for them to talk about, but it was nice to have them here. And just a quick note, our twins, when you see them in videos, so they have microcephaly, and they also have some other challenges cognitively. So you'll see them sometimes being quieter. Sometimes we have to ask questions in a different way. You'll see us kind of try to use our hands more and be more interactive with them. So this is your first time to kind of hear about a little bit about their story. We're going to do more as it gets later on, but just a little bit about their story. But as they're sitting here, we just want you to know they are engaged. We just have to say things differently. We have to ask questions differently than our other typical kids, and we have to give them a little bit of time and also give them space when they're not ready to answer and they don't fully understand. It's okay for us just to give them space and come back to them a little bit later on, just because they have several challenges from their life in China, and some severe and profound special needs and things like that we'll talk about at other times. But we did want you to know that if you kind of hear them a little quieter talking, or you see them responding differently than our other typical kids, that's okay. That's what makes them special. That's why we just absolutely love them, and they bring so much joy, and special needs can just give such a beautiful mixture and tapestry into our family. So I did want to bring a little note about that as you see them for the first time interacting with you guys and also interacting with us together. So we're so thankful, and remember that if our 24 hours is giving you hopefully a little bit of encouragement, that if whatever you're going through right now isn't going the way you planned, if you've planned and planned and planned and prayed and prayed and prayed and nothing seems to be working and it seems to be falling apart, if you've been called to it, God will get you through it. So hold on tight to what you know that you're called to, and trust that even in the dark times, like the cave, the thumbs middle kind or the thumbs down days, and also remember that in our day-to-day lives, that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Right, and just because it's right doesn't mean it's going to be easy. There's sometimes that we just have to lean into God and press through, and that's one of the beautiful ways that He loves on us and allows Him to learn to love Him more. So until next time, go out and have some crazy fun. So don't forget to like this video and then subscribe so that you make sure that you don't miss anything. That actually helps us out a lot when you do those two things. And then also, if you missed our last video, just get some context on this one, you can click right down there and get it as well. And don't forget to follow all of our social media outlets. You can go to our website, which is www.findyourcrazy.org, and check out everything there. See you next time.